Hey everyone, so today I'm here in my barn. Today's video is going to be quite hard for me, but there's some stories in the press at the moment, and I feel like I have a need to contribute to what's going on. I'm no one special, but I'm one of thousands. For those of you in Australia, you are all aware of the Daniel Morcombe case. And you're also aware of Derryn Hinch's push to get a public sex offenders register out there, a law similar to Megan's Law in America. And he's got a petition going at the moment to sign that. And I want to publicise that because something very important to our family and to many families as well, but I just want to give you a one person's account of what actually happens in these instances and what you can do to help. So some of you who are my close friends know about these stories, and you know, some of you don't, so this is it. I'm putting it out there, and hope that I've got your support at the end of it. So, as you all know, I'm married with a couple of kids, and I'm very happily married to Shannon, and my kids are just amazing kids. I've got a granddaughter, and very proud of all of them for what they're achieving, but it wasn't easy getting here where we are today. And like they said, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and yeah, I'm not too sure where to start, but here I'm going to let it go. So I'm not too sure how to start, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm not sure about suppression orders and all that type of thing. I know that I certainly haven't been served with a suppression order, but today I'm going to stand up and I'm going to name names. This isn't evidence based on this evidence isn't based on hearsay or reading it in the paper or the media or whatever. This evidence is 100% true because it happened to us. And yeah, so today I'm going to name names. Basically the background of the story is that before I was married to Shannon, I was married to a man for 10 years. His name is Gavin Barry Messenger. Gavin is currently serving 12 years, less time served, etc, etc, non-parole periods, blah blah blah, in the same prison that Derryn Hinch was just released from. For the American people that don't know about the Derryn Hinch story, he went to jail for 50 days for naming pedophiles. Now, Gavin Messenger is due to be released next year in 2015, and that scares the living daylights out of me. We had a very weird... Gavin and I had a very weird and toxic relationship, and it was based on 10 years of him grooming myself and my children. You never think that you can be the one to be brainwashed, but it happens, and it can happen to the strongest of people, the strongest mind of people. You know, you read the news and you say, oh, how could they be tricked into that? It happens, and it can happen to anybody. So my first two children were from another relationship, and I brought them into the marriage with Gavin, and we had one child of our own. So like I said, he spent 10 years grooming us. There are a lot of warning signs along the way, but things that when you're brainwashed sort of just you get angry about, but you pass it off. And I'm writing a book currently, and those details I'll let out at a later date, but I don't have time to say it all today. Basically, after 10 years of marriage, he sexually assaulted a 12-year-old family member of mine. Nobody knew what to do. It was rough. It's hard to believe that that can happen to you. And for the victim, it was just horrible. Nobody acts in the right way. People say that you should act this way, you should act that way. You don't know until you're in that situation how you are going to react to that. And, you know, different people do different things. So Mr. Messenger went and handed himself into the police station, telling them a minimal account of everything that he'd done. And that's what pedophiles do. They minimise everything and hope that, you know, they're just going to get a smack on the wrist and get out of there. Gavin thought he'd gotten away with it, and you know, I was questioned. A lot of people, you know, were in shock about it. It's a very hard thing to tell your family and friends, and you will find out who your real friends are, because you will lose a lot of people. A lot of people will blame you for it, and there's nothing you can do about that. You just have to let them go. If they can't understand and support you, then you have to let them go. So anyway, so Mr. Messenger handed himself into police and questioned, and he was released that night. I was put through absolute hell. I had child protection on my case. I had, you know, which is what their job is, but yeah, it wasn't nice at all. Anyway, so we're talking about an 8-month time period where I kept contacting the police to find out what was going on with the case, because they'd released him, you know, with nothing. Like, he wasn't on bail, he didn't front court, he was just questioned and released. Even after the victim made a statement, he was still, you know, let go, and there was nothing done about it. The officers that took his statement, Gavin's statement, well, the officer went from being a detective, went down to plain clothes, and nobody knew what had happened to the case. They kept telling me they were looking for it. Things were, you know, nobody knew anything. It was ridiculous. So because of the fact that we had a house together, I had to move out. We lost the house. I lost the house. We lost everything, and it was an absolute nightmare. I was financially destitute. It was not a nice place to be in. Having to explain to, you know, electricity companies and everything what was going on so they could give you a break on your bill and all that type of thing was just terrible. Someone actually accused me of making it up, which was just ridiculous. So I lost everything. I moved into another house 8 months later. Mr. Messenger was still contacting us. He was stalking me. So because he wasn't arrested in that 8 months, I woke up to one night to Mr. Messenger banging on my door, and I opened the door and it was about midnight, and it was pretty crook. I had the flu, and you know, I wasn't feeling the best. Anyway, he wanted to carry on about, you know, poor him because he'd done this, and things weren't going well for him, and you know, it really wasn't my fault, but I asked him to leave. And he didn't. He took me hostage with a knife, and the next few hours were absolutely horrifying for me. I was raped. I had my life threatened. I had a knife held to my throat on several occasions. I was tied up. But when you're in that situation, the best thing I could do to him was lie. And I lied to him to make him stop. I lied to save my own life. And it wasn't just my life who was in the balance here. I had 2 young children in the house at the time, and I was trying so hard not to scream or wake them up because I didn't want them coming in the room at the time, because God knows what he would have done to them. So I finally got a break. At the end of it, he thought, you know, everything was well and we were all back together. You know, you rape somebody and you think you're back together. It's just ridiculous. That just goes to show how delusional this man is. And I told him I felt like a cigarette and I didn't have any. And he took it upon himself to go to the service station to get some. Couldn't believe my luck. And I rang the police. And I had them on the phone and I was trying to explain to them what was going on. And I told them to hurry because he was on his way back and he wouldn't be far away, and I didn't know what to do. And he showed up before the cops did. I asked the operator at Triple O, you know, what was the best thing to do? You know, how do I keep him away, because there was no police there. She told me she couldn't help me. She didn't know what to do. She said it was only I was the only one that could make a decision on what to do. So I had to think for myself again, and in that kind of situation, it's the hardest thing to think of. So I let him in, and I only let him in for one reason, and that was to make sure he didn't get away. I didn't want him on the streets anymore. So I let him back in. We're standing in the lounge room, which is to the front of the house, and I was trying to keep him as calm as I can and just completely change the subject. Like, I didn't talk about anything that could roll him up or anything. Like, I was just trying to be so calm. And the police rolled up, and that was the most dangerous time for me because he was standing right next to me and he saw the police come up the driveway. And I said to him, well, he said to me, you know, oh, it's the cops, you know, how did they know, you know? He thought everything was fine between us at the time, so thank God I had that on my side, that he thought that, you know, I actually explained to him that, you know, I don't know how, maybe the neighbours heard something, or, you know, something was off. And so he ran towards the back of the house down to the laundry, and that relieved me a lot. Just goes to show what a coward he is. Anyway, so I opened the door for the police, and I explained that I thought he was going out the back door, and so some of them went round the back and some of them came inside. They came inside and grabbed him, and it was quite an uneventful arrest on him. Anyway, they kept me in a room separate, and they sat him down and they said to him, you know, well, what's going on? And he's like, he was just acting like it was just a marital fight, like nothing had gone on. I couldn't believe it. Like, he said we were having problems, even though we'd broken up because of what he did. So they took him into custody straight away, and he realised it was me because he said he saw on the screen that I was the one that had called. He saw that in the police car. Now, given the fumbling that happened with the other case, that could have really affected whether I was assaulted or not, I was given a good detective this time, and he looked after me really well, and throughout the case. And you know, in a time like that, you can't ask for a better person. So anyway, I was taken to hospital for an exam, and you know, all that sort of stuff after it happens after a sexual assault. And it started all over again. The whole, you've got to tell people what happened, or, you know, that for me then I also become another victim, because first off I was a victim of his actions, but I wasn't the victim of the first crime. But the second time, not only was I a victim of his actions, I was a victim of his crime, and it started a whole roller coaster ride for me. It meant night terrors, anxiety attacks. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Still have night terrors. So he went to jail. He came out on bail at some point because we weren't allowed to mention the other case in the bail hearing. So he was in jail for a few months, and yeah, like I said, got out on a bail hearing because the other case wasn't allowed to be mentioned because it still hadn't been served on him, because someone was still looking for the case to fix it. So that was just ridiculous. Finally, a few years later, it had all gotten together, and thanks to the detective that was looking after me, he pushed to find the other case and get that going as well. So he was finally convicted on both cases. He was given 12 years in total. He was due for release next year, and he will be going to live around the Lowood area, so if you're around there, keep an eye out next year. The reason that I'm telling you this story is because it just, in the press a lot, there's been things about, with the Daniel Morgan case, how his murderer, Brett Cowan, was only given 2 short jail terms for 2 horrific crimes he did, and it's making the country mad. We're talking about the Jill Meagher case. Her killer was also killed by somebody that was on parole for the same thing. When I was, after the case had finished with us and he was put into jail, he found a loophole in the law, and the first year of my marriage to Shannon was spent fighting him in court because he decided to use the family law court to take me for a ride. I had to defend myself because I ran out of funds after defending myself for, getting defence for a short amount of time. It was and we weren't eligible for legal aid or anything, and he was getting full legal aid from prison, and I had a small connection with Darren Hinch there because just a couple of nights before we went to trial on this, Darren put me on the radio to reach out for help, and I did get a lot of help, but unfortunately the judge that we had was horrible. I believe that we were wrongly done by. So in the trial, I was forced myself to face him again from prison. All of the court proceedings happened with a video conference with him from prison. I was forced to face the man that held me hostage and cross-examine him myself. I had to ask him questions about what he'd done. I had to ask him questions about what he'd done. And his answer was, I don't know. I don't know. That's exactly how he answered. I can't believe in this day and age that a rape victim would be forced to face their rapist in court and cross-examine them. It was ludicrous. And the legal system was really trying to screw us over as well. In the end, the judge awarded him what he wanted. And the judge, who is a Brisbane family court judge, or actually I believe he's a federal magistrate, I'm sorry, said he can't award good or bad parenting, so the fact that he was a pedophile meant nothing. And that his hands were tied and he had no choice but to give him contact with another child again. So child protection will tell you that they don't want him to have contact with children, but yet a federal magistrate can tell you that they override that, and you have to go with what he says. So we've been fighting that for the last couple of years. Now the child that we went to court over is old enough to know what his father did, and he pretty much feels the same as everybody else, and he's pretty much disgusted. He's refusing the contact that the judge has made because he doesn't want to be a part of it. So there's several points to my story here, and I know that I've been sort of going back and forth. The first part is the justice system in the, you know, there's good and bad policing. There's good and bad policing in everything. I had some good policing in my case, but bad policing in the other case, which had a knock-on effect to my case. If the policing was done properly in the first place, I wouldn't have been assaulted at all. It was bad enough he did to the first victim what he did, but then to have, you know, more victims after that. And you know what? I'm not the only victim. When this happens to you, it happens to the family, it happens to your friends, it happens to everybody. It's not just one person. So the reason that I'm doing this is because the victims need to speak out now. It's time to get this out there in the public. Every story is different, not everyone's the same. A large percentage of people who are sexually assaulted are assaulted by somebody that they know. But, you know, there are stories of, you know, Jill Meagher, Daniel Morcombe, they didn't know who their people were, but these guys were out on parole. These guys were known sexual offenders and violent sexual offenders at that. The guy in WA that's just been released, he was given an indefinite sentence but somehow managed to get out. So, keep screaming, Australia. Keep the noise going. You can make a difference. We can all make a difference. It's time to make a change. Please go to the link below and sign Darren's petition. If you're also a victim, because I know I'm not the only one, and it's time for everybody to speak out. I went to plenty of media outlets. I went to Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 2, Courier Mail. Every journalist I spoke to was too scared to even touch this, but thanks to Darren we can get this out. Get this out there. Let's change the law. Let's stop hiding these people. We need to know where they are. We need to know for our own safety. And you know, I sit here before you today no longer as a victim but as a survivor, and I'm ready to make a change. And if that means that I have to name names and protect people from my assault, if that means that I have to name names and confront the person that did this to us, then so be it. So thank you for listening. If you're a victim and you want to get your story out there too, please leave a comment below or contact me. You can get me on Facebook or Twitter. I'm around most of the time. So I know this is off topic today. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video. Let's get the word out there that there are stories out there that can prove to the rest of Australia that this is not on. This cannot happen. Thanks.